Hello, adventurers, and welcome back to Adventuring with Chris. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by Michael Possert Jr., special effects artist and author of The Rocket Factory, the making of the Rocketeer's helmet and rocket pack. Michael was directly involved in bringing the iconic Rocketeer helmet and rocket pack from the page to the screen, and his work helped define one of Disney's cult classics. In today's conversation, we're going to dive into the fascinating and sometimes complicated history of Rocketeer props, including the different versions that were made, how they were used, how some of the pieces eventually ended up on display at one of the theme parks, Disney's Hollywood Studios, including Disney's tied to Peavy's Polar Pipeline. And if you've ever wondered whether Rocketeer gear you're seeing at the parks was actually screen used or not, park made, or something sort of in between, this is the conversation for you. Michael, thank you for joining us today.
Um, I'm real happy to be here. I love talking about this stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And I've got my friend again behind us here. We've got my version of the Rocketeer. Again, every version is different. And yeah, so I think we're just going to dive right into this.
Sure.
Let's start talking about your book and which can be found on Book Baby, and I'll talk about that later. For those
Yep.
of you that may not know, can you briefly describe your work on the Rocketeer film that Disney put out in 1991? And excuse me, what inspired you to write The Rocket Factory?
Yeah, briefly. We'll see. Well, um, I'd only been in the industry in Los Angeles for just, I think, 3 years by then.
Hmm.
And I'd worked uh, previously for Design Centers, which is where we made the hero helmets and rocket packs. And that's really all I can talk about definitively. I mean, I know a lot of the other stuff that went on with the movie too, as well, but I ended up at Design Centers because I'd worked for them earlier on The Abyss. And as I go over in my book a little bit, is I've done a lot of mold making at Design Centers for The Abyss. I think I made over 100 molds of various sizes. And so once I landed on Rocketeer, everybody just anointed me the mold maker because I'd had a lot of experience. I would have not called myself a mold maker, but there you are. So I was involved with fabrication. It was a small crew. It changed as we went along, but it was a small crew. And all of us fabricated and then also did things like casting helmets and use the molds and stuff. It was quite a fun project to be on because it was a small crew and all of us got to do a lot of different aspects of it.
Gotcha. So basically, you guys were sort of a first place that Disney went to get just a grasp on what this thing, getting it from comic book to screen, and what would be involved with that.
Yeah, the reason we got it and that it didn't stay in-house at Disney or go up to ILM because they did all the other effects and the stop motion animation, um, it's because of James Bissell. James Bissell is a production designer, and he'd worked with design setters earlier on the movie Twins, where they made this really weird contraption for the trunk. It was the MacGuffin of the movie. Everybody was chasing it. And he was so impressed with the job, that simple one prop job, that he didn't even go to other shops. He's not a fan of doing bidding, so he's told me of having different places bid things out. And he knew that the people at Design Centers, and he knew he could probably get something really good, or at least get the ball rolling. And so he just came to Design Centers, and that's how we got it. And it went from there. James Bissell and of course Joe Johnston knew that if you didn't play this just right with the designs, it could look really silly. A man with a bucket on his head and something strapped to his back that looks like a fire hydrant. It could have gone really south real quickly, like the old black and whites of Commander Cody and stuff. Looks a little funky now to us. And so they were very concerned about that. So the first thing we were tasked with was diving in and just start making a helmet, start making the first rocket pack, which was based off the comic, the single engine, and let's see where we go. And that was it was kind of fun. We didn't have a lot of time, but it was also refreshing in that we were really part of the early design process for the hero stuff.
Okay, so let's say now, fast forward to Michael Eisner and his one of his many baby park projects, which was Disney's at the time MGM Studios. And the whole design of that park is to basically be, now they've gone away from that now, but the whole idea in 1989 when they opened that park was you're basically getting a behind the scenes look. So they had decorated the park all out with props and costumes to give people that are visiting the theme park a view of what that looks like. And believe it or not, Peavy's Polar Pipeline, which is brought to you by Coca-Cola, is this like I can't believe it's still there. It's a little drink stand, and it's right near Gertie, the ice cream shop dinosaur, and it's just tucked away right there under a Roger Rabbit, of all things, uh, billboard. So most people are always ask me, and I'm coming to you with this question today. There's a rocket pack and there's a helmet back there behind that little drink stand. Um, are you familiar with these particular pieces at the park, Michael?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
always a lot of fun talking about PVs because there's wild theories about them. But what we've come down to is the helmet is a two-part vacuum formed tearaway helmet, and that was made specifically for the stuntman Michael DeLuna in particular, because he was tasked with all the really scary stunts, like jumping off planes to make himself look like he's flying. He did all the bi-wing stunts, biplanes stunts, and so they did an early test, and there's a lot of rotoscoped images and other images out there of him being hung underneath a helicopter on wires. And he had one of our tearaway helmets. We made over a dozen of them, and it was the front part and some Velcro. And when the stunt was over, so the stuntman could see easier while he's falling through the sky, he would peel that away and just have his main helmet and goggles. And so that was our theory. That's what we went with. And Michael DeLuna tested it. And right away in the first test, they deemed it inadequate. So what happened to those tearaways? I don't know what happened to most of them. One turned up at an auction. And the most famous one is the one at Peavy's Polar, because I had someone just recently send me a photo. They shoved their hand inside, took a photo of the side of the helmet, and you can see a little bit of a communications equipment in there. So that leads us to believe that that was the one that Michael DeLuna tested with, and then they discarded it. They didn't really discard it; they just used it here in Disney World. So we believe that's the only time it was used by production was for this test to see if it would work for the stunt guy, and it didn't, so it was just discarded.
There you go, folks. You've now heard it from the horse's mouth right here, Michael Possert, who worked on it. So a lot of people always ask, what was it? Was it screen used? Sort of. So now the rocket pack that's there. Now,
Yeah.
um, I think I kind of helped a couple of fans. I took some really close ups, and I think the one thing, and I'll let you kind of go on with this, are the bolts.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us about the rocket pack that's at Peavy's?
Yeah, we'll see if it matches your stories. The way I understand it is, and I got this from a couple of fanboys that are, they're way into it. You probably know the same guys.
Oh yeah.
Those bolts are the ones that were bolted into the statue of Lucky Lindy.
Okay.
And that rocket pack is for that stunt with the statue. And the reason they believe that it's that is because it was bolted on, and you're not going to bolt it on to any human. So it would make sense that it was for the Lucky Lindy. And also, there's some particular things about the harness. The harness gives away that it was made either at Disney or by Jana, the costumer that made the harnesses for us. So the belief on that is that's one of the stunt rocket packs bolted to a harness, and all that was bolted to the Lucky Lindy statue. Is
Okay.
that what you heard?
That's exactly what I heard because I find myself to be a fan, and I went there and I snapped some photos while I was with my partner, and she's very patient with me, mind you. And so I snapped some quick photos, sent it out there, and people the research just went abound. But I think that's going to put the rumors to rest right there because I'm pretty sure, and I found some pictures way back when at Disney MGM Studios. At one point on their backlot tour, they had the Lucky Lindy statue with the bolted on pack.
Oh wow.
So there you go. I think that's
Yeah.
got it. So now,
There's
if you,
one there's
yeah, go ahead.
there's one sad note to that is, and I think I saw it once. There's a photo you got to dig, but online somewhere that from way back when it was first set up in Peavy's little display there, that the harness still had on it the the buckle, the infamous buckle that
Yep.
nobody really fully understands the origins and they're hard to find. And what's sad is somewhere along the line, someone came along and cut it off and took
Yep.
it. And
Oh
that's a
yeah.
bummer.
Yeah, and behind there too, someone took there was a little pennant from the air races, the Bigelow air races that was back there, and apparently someone has taken that over the years as well, which is really a shame.
It is.
It deserves a lot more respect. So now we're gonna head over to one of the restaurants, the themed restaurants, mind you, the Sci-Fi Dine-In. Now this is a themed restaurant where basically everyone is in like a 1950s looking car. That's your table, and everyone basically they've painted the ceiling to look like you're at a drive-in theater at night, and they're showing a bunch of Disney classic movies and cartoons. Well, people pointed this out to me. I didn't actually even know it was there, so I went, and there's a bunch of props. There's a menu from the restaurant, the not the Bulldog Cafe, the what's the one where he the fancy
Oh,
Billy's.
South Sea.
Thank you. South Seas. There's a South Seas Club menu. There's a picture of Jenny that he kept in the GB. Okay, so but the cool parts are on the way to the bathroom up on the left, and I think I showed you some of these pictures. There's a rocket pack. Now, being the I'm not a thief, but I went over and touched it. I didn't want to pull any parts off, but I did touch it, and it feels like it's foam latex. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that pack?
Yeah, all I know is that they wanted a bunch of foam rocket packs for the stunt guys and running around doing various things for the shoot. We did not make those. I believe it was the staff shop at Disney or someone related to the production that had those made. Now what we did is we made, I won't go into the details, it's in the book, but we made a very specific kind of mold for the zinc spray for the Rocket Pack Heroes. Thank you. And and then we also made a rubber silicone mold. We gave that to the effects guys, and that's how they managed to duplicate the firing, the metal, all metal ones. And then we also set a silicone mold. I can't remember, it's so vague. It worked so fast. I know we sent them castings of the rocket pack, and we believe that from that they made molds that they derived all the foamies from. We call them foamies, but they're like you said, they have a shell, a hardened shell, not hardened, I shouldn't say that, but a more rubbery surface. But they're basically foam inside, and they are used for safety. And we can't really get a grip on how many of those were made. There was quite a few made, and they've ended up all over. A lot of them, as you know, have been sold or auctioned. And I have not seen that. I have not been into the restaurant, but like this photo I'm looking at now from you, I've had a bunch of people send me these photos, and I would have to believe that that one is one of those stunt ones, foamies, because there's different levels. Because
That's
after
right.
we made the two zinc shell rocket packs, we made 8 or 10 or so. I'd have to look at my notes. Resin rocket packs that were as close to the heroes as we could make, and we gave them. So when they were doing something a little further away with Bill Campbell, or had a stunt guy, and they didn't want to go to a foamy because it wasn't that kind of harness work or something, they used our secondary. We call them secondaries. They're the secondary rocket packs. And you don't see those out in the wild too much, which has always made me wonder if they're sitting on them at Disney. There's a couple, but not many. And then these, the foamies, and those are the ones that people have seen the most of because you've seen those in transactions quite a bit online.
Yeah, and unfortunately, when I got up close to it, as you know, foam latex is not a medium that's designed to last. It's
No,
designed to be used once, and that's kind of it. I looked at it up close. Now, luckily, it has been endorsed. Some of the rocket elements are starting to crack, as foam latex does.
yep,
But for whatever reason, the flaps at the bottom are plastic or probably resin. Uh, but everything else is foam. All right, so now we're gonna go to the right side of the restaurant, and this is another one, and I'm gonna let you get to the bottom of this because there's some recent online drama, if you will, about the helmets. Okay, so prop store put up a helmet, and claimed it was, I guess you could say, screen used or from the master mold of the screen used ones. So I think the one in the restaurant that I'm referring to, if you take a look at the photo, it's hard to say, but I think it's of the same mold that the one that just popped up on Prop Store was. Uh, do you want to tell us what distinguishes what was one of the guys walking around Disney dressed up as a park version of the Rocketeer versus what was an actual screen used helmet, Michael? I know this is a loaded question here with all the drama recently.
No, it is, and I'm going to address that a little bit. I wouldn't say I'm sorry that I made that post, but I didn't expect the reaction I got. First of all, it was overwhelming. It was on Facebook, the Rocketeer Club forum. I posted how I felt the auction houses don't do the legwork that I feel they need to. They start calling out provenance. And a lot of times with the Rocketeer stuff, and I'm not just picking on Prop Store, I'm talking across the board, they just get it wrong, which is really sad because there's still a bunch of us out here. And me and I know a lot of the other crew members would love to talk. You know, we'll tell you what we know. Anyhow, I corrected this. I believe this is a helmet that they were claiming was production used and made by design setters. And that's the only thing I have had issue with it is if you look at it, you'll notice that there's no welds anywhere. It's real smooth. If you look directly dead on, like let me show you here with
Yeah, go
my
ahead.
helmet, dead on here. If you look, I get as close as I can. These two rivets in the center here, they're
Hmm.
pretty even. That's by
Right.
design. And the ones on this particular helmet are a little askew, and it's a little fatter and what seems more round and sleek, like Art Deco, like Kent Melton sculpted and Dave Stevens drew. And a lot of little things like that are wrong with it. Also, on side shots, you can see that there's perforated metal in the fin to give it some backbone. We never did that. So they said it was from design setters and they said it was production used. And that was where I really had a rub because the best working theory right now is that it was made by Disney internally for the guy that flew around in the real air-powered jetpack, show in front of Grauman's Chinese, I believe it was. There's only one really bad, grainy photo online. We all would love to see more reference on that show come out, but no one can find it. And we believe that right now there's about 3 or 4 of them in existence, so there must have been a mold. It was a quick sculpt because it's a nice sculpt, but it's not a great sculpt, you know.
Right.
And we just believe because there's also some photos from the auctions. There's nice, serious padding inside, so it had to have been used for something that's like a stunt. And if you're flying a real jetpack, you know that's probably would cause good cause to have good padding. So, and like I said in my post, I'm not saying it doesn't have value. It absolutely does if it comes from Disney. It's part of the Disney World stuff. That's great value, but it's just not production used as far as we can ascertain at this time. Now, and here's why I say that so strongly is the sculpt I molded was from Kent Melton. You guys should look him up. He's legend at Pixar and Disney as a sculptor. And if you know Dave Stevens' artwork, it's tight, it's
Hmm.
clean. And so Kent Melton's sculpting is the same way. It's tight and it's clean. And that's why I don't believe they say, from our production molds. Well, no way, because there's no molds or there's no welds on the seams, and it's just not nearly as tight as it should be. And here's the final thing I'll say on that is I know Brad Einhorn, the prop master. I know how he acts. I know how he's very professional. And I know enough about Joe Johnston to know that they wanted it tight and clean. And so just looking at this helmet, it would not have been allowed on production as far as I'm concerned from knowing the prop master who's, his butt was on the line. Everything had to look good and be good. And then just Joe Johnston's taste of wanting to nail everything. So like I said, I'm not saying it doesn't have any value.
No, absolutely not.
We still believe it's part of the Disney uh, you know, canon, but it's just not production used and wasn't made by design setters. And that's all I'm getting at with these auction houses is I just wish they would do more legwork. That's all, because it's not just Rocketeer stuff. I talk to a lot of people. I've worked on a lot of other movies, and we're always calling out errors in their descriptions, and it's just kind of a bummer.
No, for sure. And as you know, the collector's market is huge. There's people that want to get this stuff, and there's a lot of money being exchanged for these things. And to call something screen used or made by the company you worked with, Design Setters, and it's not, is so if you would real quick, hold your helmet back up. So you were talking about the weld marks. What weld marks should a fan look for to know that it's in fact something that Design Setters or to get the look of Design Setters?
Can you see that enough?
Yes, I can. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So of course the main ones are the ones down along the fin, and
Got
they
it.
go all the way around to the back.
Hmm.
And then it's the I'm we always just call this the head vents. So
Hmm.
so the ones that go around there,
Hmm.
and those are the ones that are completely missing from that one from the recent prop store um, auction. And that right there is a dead giveaway. You don't have to know anything else. If you think you're getting a production one, the first thing that it has to have is all the welds. And the
Yeah.
second thing, which it's in my book, so I'm not giving anything up, is you can't really see it here, but I slush cast it. Me and I did a good majority of them, but everybody slushed some for the
Hmm.
production because we were in such a time pinch. And so the inside is uneven. And that's what happens with slush casting. So if you see a nice fiberglass one, that's not from us. Now, that's not to say someone else on production didn't do it. I don't think anybody at Disney did. But if it's fiberglass or it's real clean and nice on the inside, that's not production.
Let me get mine and I'll show you because mine's the slush cast. Now, mine is I'm not going to go on and say that it was, production made. It's not. It was made by a fan, a really talented artist. I think he goes by the online moniker El Rocketeer. His name's Aaron.
Oh yeah, I'm
Very,
familiar.
very talented guy. But he sent me a special requested one that was unpainted, a slush cast resin mold unpainted because my partner, she is a very talented artist, and she was like, as a gift to me, she was like, let me paint it for you. And I
Right.
I completely trusted her. So let me get this and I'll show you. Now, mine, as you can see, the colors are going to be a little bit different. And my partner, I had her paint it with a little bit of wear and tear as if the Rocketeer had used it.
Yeah.
Now, if you look inside, though, it is not clean. As a matter of fact, I've already dinged a little bit here. You probably can't see all the mold from the slush cast, but I've got the thing in
Oh, I
here,
see. Yeah.
and it is not clean at all. It is,
Right.
but I'm not going on to say that
Correct.
mine isn't, this isn't screen used. This is a fan made deal, but I've got the as close as I can to the
Yeah.
welds and to honor you guys' work. This isn't on
Right.
what is it? Copying is the most sincere form of flattery or something like that. And I
Right.
think,
Right. Right.
and I'm not, I think I like the color, but what do you think?
No, I think it's really good reproduction. It's really good. Is just a couple things too. Is I love all the fan made stuff. I love it. I love going online and on the forums on Facebook and elsewhere and seeing fan made stuff. And I get particularly excited and almost teary eyed because it's so great when a father or parents make a little rocket pack for their son or daughter and they're made out of like Quaker Oats containers or something. I really love that because that's what it's all about, having some fun.
Absolutely. And you guys were the ones there. You were down in the trenches doing this. And I think it's important when I saw your post, that's why I immediately shared it. I was like, look, this guy was there. He was in the trenches. He was at Design Setters. If anybody is going to say something was screen used or not, it's this guy. Why not take the experience he has and listen to him instead of going, well, maybe not. Maybe he's wrong. I'm like, he was there. He had his elbows deep in it. I'm pretty sure he could tell you the difference between this is a Disney cast member helmet And this is one that I helped make for the production.
Yeah, and I guess I got to throw that caveat out again here in that I will only claim to fully know, and even the memory on some of that is sketchy. What we did at Design Centers, me and the other people involved. But I do know that Disney made stuff for the walkarounds, of course, for all their shows and events. I couldn't maybe pick them out of a lineup other than to say they're not what we made. You know what I'm saying? So,
Absolutely.
but also, like I said, falling back on things that I know that we gave the tearaway helmets to John Bellew of the effects guy and his crew, and they made they finished them out. They put padding inside the communications for the stuntman, and they reinforced the fin. And some people might be confused. I get that, so I'm not trashing everybody. We made the tearaways and handed them off to the effects guys who were working directly with the stuntmen. It only makes sense. So could you say the effects guys made the tearaways, which some people are claiming? Yeah. But I also have photos of us in house with Carl Martin, who was a PA then, and he was cleaning up the vacuum form shells. It's in my book. And 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 we finished them to a point with the Velcro and lenses and then handed them off to the effects guys. So it gets sloppy, incestuous where all these parts end up, you
Well,
know.
you know what? I think it's important when people go to the parks, they can look at the helmet and say, well, there's no welds. That's got to be. And I'm telling you, I think the one that's in the restaurant that I sent you a picture of, it's like in the rafters. If you take a look at that photo, I think it's one of the park ones. I don't see any weld marks on the front of it, and I
Right,
don't see
right.
the two rivets on the front. I don't see them. So I'm thinking it was one of the similar to the one that Prop Store just put out. So my last question for you before we wrap things up. When you see Rocketeer stuff like this, Michael, appearing in places 35 years later, I know time flies.
Yeah.
35 years later, how does it feel to see work that you were involved in preserved and still people seeing it and talking about it today?
No, I love it. It's been the one project. I've done dozens and dozens of projects, but there's only a few that keep coming back. And Rocketeer is right at the top. I mean, I knew then it was something exciting when I got into it because before I had a chance to work on the movie, I was already a fan of Dave Stevens's comic book and had been collecting them. And I was, of course, a fan of Joe Johnston because I'm a big sci-fi nerd and I loved all his Star Wars stuff that he did with ILM. And then on top of that, it was a big Disney project. So we were thrilled. We were all in our 20s and it was just very exciting. And then it flopped, as everybody says. It flopped only because we got crushed by Robin Hood and T2 and not the greatest marketing campaign. I believe it could have done a lot better if Disney had gotten behind it. But they were kind of I don't think to this day we fully know why they pulled back a little bit. Anyhow, it's got incredible staying power and almost cult status because if you're on the forum on Facebook, it's funny because I keep seeing the membership increase. And that's weird because, like you said, it's over 30 years ago. But it's really well done by Joe Johnston. It was smart because the way he shot it and filmed it, it holds up today. It's as good and fun as it was when it was released in '91. And so he didn't do anything that was like contemporary winks and nods, what was going on in 91. He really placed it in the late 1930s, and it's still a good play.
I think so too. And as I told Billy, the one thing that people always ask when they see my thing on TikTok or Instagram is the bubble gum. They always
Yes,
remember, everybody remembers the bubble gum bit.
right.
So, all right, let's go ahead and wrap this up and let me plug your book for you. Michael, thank you so much for taking the time to share your knowledge, your experience with us today, your insight to bring clarity to the craftsmanship behind the Rocketeer helmets and, of course, the rocket packs and the many versions fans have seen over the years and made. For anyone who's wanting to go deeper with the Christmas time coming around here, um, I highly recommend checking out Michael's book. Here, I just saw someone on one of the groups asking, "Is there a behind the scenes book?" This is it, guys. This is as close as you're going to get of a behind the scenes book. the Rocket Factory, which is an in-depth look at the design, fabrication, and legacy of these iconic props. And you can get it at bookbabybookshop.com. Did I get that right, Michael?
You did. And once
Oh,
you get to bookbaby.com,
mhm.
just search Rocket Factory and it should come right up.
Perfect. And again, this is a great Christmas gift if you're got a Rocketeer fan that you know. There's photos in here, guys, that talk about they're showing everything that Michael and I have been talking about today. And Michael, thanks again for joining us today. It's been a real honor. And I will catch you guys on the next Adventuring with Chris. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you on the next one.